Okay, so this is going to be my reaction to Skillup's Ghost of Yotei review. Now, if you're watching this, it may have like cut in halfway through what I was saying. What I'm doing is I'm coming from morning coffee. So if you're a member to my channel, you can be having access to that and you can talk. But now we're in the live show, and the live show is going to be me reacting to the Ghost of Yotei review from Skillup. Now, I need to say on the outset, I really like Skillup, and I like his channel. I like his content. I've almost never disagreed with him. It's very infrequent that I disagree with him. And you should go check out his Deathloop review. It's actually one of his best reviews because, like, I was very frustrated with the way that, like, Deathloop was given this, like, media darling treatment, and Returnal didn't get enough praise at the Game Awards. And so check out his Returnal review and his Deathloop review, okay? I really like Skillup. I really like and respect Ralph. I got, like, 2 to 3 minutes into his review, and I just could not disagree with him more about Ghost of Yotei. Now, let me be clear about something. I don't care if you don't like Yotei. I don't care if you're critical about it. I just don't agree with how he's viewing it, and I want to talk about why. I want to see if he makes a good case in his video for his complaints in the first couple of minutes. So, support the original creator, support the original video. It will be linked below. Leave him nice comments, even if you disagree with him. Be positive, be charitable. I appreciate his content, his Friends Per Second podcast, and all of that. I like what he brings to the table in content, okay? So, let me get into this. Now, right before I get into this, though, I need to thank some people. We had a renewal at the very, very last stream. Thank you so much for that renewal, and let me get that added to the total here for YouTube. And then we had a 10 bomb come in from Twitch, so we're at 323 on the total. So thank you guys so much for doing that. As you come over and get settled in for this reaction, do me a favor. Hit that like button. That's really, really helpful to me, okay? So let me get this pulled up, and you have the member goal rate. Believe me, if you guys can get that to 500 before tonight, you'll get a double header with 2 games, Date Everything, as well as Little Nightmares 3. Let's get into this.
To keep it down but don't want to wear a bulky headset when playing your PS5, well, channel sponsor SteelSeries have released their first ever set of GHz active stick.
Use his code. Use code Skillup if you go over to the SteelSeries, but I didn't want to have
and then when you use offer code Skillup at checkout,
I'm not sponsored by
to the end of the video to learn more. In 2020, I basically awarded Ghost of Tsushima my personal game of the year. And I say basically because the game sat a little awkwardly at the top of my list. What I said back then was that when it comes to a game of the year list, I put a big premium on innovation, and Ghost of Tsushima wasn't really innovative per se. Instead, it was an incredibly refined version of the open world formula that we'd been playing throughout most of the 2010s, and so it felt more iterative than breakthrough. That didn't stop it from being a phenomenal game, mind you. In fact, it was so good that one of the other things I said in that Game of the Year video is that I think this particular spin on the open world formula, this map marker driven, AAA, Ubisoft inspired, cinematic open world action game, Ghost of Tsushima essentially perfected that formula to the point.
Now, here's the thing. We've watched this clip a bunch, and we talked with it. We talked over it. And I think we've really, really got to pay attention to how he tees up the video, okay? And a lot of it's going to have to do with how he feels about open world games. Thank you, Broken Earth, for 10 members, Joker Quinn for a single, and then I can't see Twitch, and my chat's busted. So I'm going to have to pull up Twitch to see what exactly happened. I can't see. So I'm sorry if you're watching this reaction later and you're like, this is really disorganized. Yes, my stream is maliciously gifting to me while I'm trying to do a reaction video. That's what they like to do. They're ordinary. We had 2 singles come in from Alex. Thank you so much for doing that. And that's going to round us out. And I can't click the buttons all of a sudden. I don't understand. Anyways, there we go. There. Now they're counting. Okay. That's perfect. And then Wired Rope's going to come in with a 5 bomb. Thank you guys so much. So keep in mind, the way that he views open world games is very, very much a part of the framing. Okay, let's keep watching.
Point where there was nowhere else for it to go. On that basis, I was really hopeful that developers would begin to reimagine the foundations of this genre so they could push new frontiers and deliver us something we hadn't experienced before, rather than another version of a game we've played dozens of times now. Ghost of Yotei is exactly what I had pleaded for Sucker Punch to not make. It's Ghost of Tsushima again, but with better visuals and a way worse story. We'll do the full review, don't worry, but that really is the strapline. If you've played Ghost of Tsushima, you have already played this. With how central storytelling is in these sorts of open world games, I came away from Yotei feeling not a lot of love for it, despite...
Now here's the thing. Haseo comes in with a 5 bomb. Thank you so much. this is where my first strongest form of disagreement is going to be with Ralph. I don't think you could say, oh yeah, if you played Tsushima, you played Yotei, okay? And I really do think the context is really helpful. I think it's something that should be applauded, that he's very transparent on the outset. Like, his expectations were that this game was going to do significant things for open world games. I don't think that expectation is necessarily fair of a sequel. I don't expect a sequel to do that. Why? Because a lot of what it's going to do, it's going to lean on and build upon the game in front of it, the game that preceded it, like Horizon Forbidden West as an example. Expecting that to completely revolutionize open world games, it's going to build on what Horizon Zero Dawn had already done. And if you actually go and look, Skillup really liked Horizon Forbidden West, and he says something in a little bit here about how people can change. My assessment, just off the cuff from the 30,000-foot view diagnosis, is he has very much soured on open world games, and I think that really affected his enjoyment of this. I don't think it's reasonable to say, well, I expect this sequel to revolutionize or completely change the way an open world is experienced. I actually think Yotei has done significant things to do that, which I'm going to be interested to see if he talks about those things in this video. Like, did he engage with those new features or not? We will see if he does in the video.
About it being a pretty phenomenal game in terms of its visuals, technical polish, and combat. If that sounds like a pretty searing indictment of the game, I don't really mean it to be. I'm not here all indignant being like, this is outrageous. It's more just like, I don't really feel anything towards this. All of its breathtaking beauty and remarkable technical polish and its brilliant combat is overshadowed by how familiar all of this feels and how thoroughly disappointing its story is. You know,
his opinion on the story, I'm not going to comment on. This is a spoiler-free review, which this is the only reason I'm watching it. I am 36 hours into the game. I only have 2 stripes on my belt. I believe he cleared credits in about 40 plus hours. So he didn't put that much more time in the game than me, and he got to the end. I'm not even close to the end. I think it says I'm like 40% of the way through or something. So I'm averaging almost like 1% an hour. So you know, what he says there about, like, you know, not liking the story or whatever, that's totally fine. I think the issues and the disagreements I'm going to have is the open world stuff and how this actually is a very different approach compared to compared to Tsushima. If you engage with the new stuff, if you don't engage with the new stuff, it very much is going to turn into icon chasing on the map if you choose to play it that way.
like, dude, what the hell? You love Ghost of Tsushima. If this is so similar, why are you dunking on it so hard? Well, I guess it's 2 things. Number 1, people change and their tastes change and evolve, especially when there's so many of these sorts of games and they all feel so familiar. You do get tired of them. But also, you know, I made this specific point 5 years ago. I said it was time for this formula to evolve, but it hasn't evolved 1 iota here in Yotei.
And right there is where I had pretty strong disagreement with him yesterday. I think that's very sweeping to say that it hasn't evolved 1 iota. I do not agree with that. I think they have done things to evolve the open world experience. I'm experiencing Yotei vastly different than Tsushima, and it's because I'm engaging with those new mechanics. It's because I'm intentionally deciding to just explore the world and let the world carry me along. As an example, just last night, I was checking a portion of the map I had not been to yet. I go over there, and lo and behold, what do I find? A bunch of cool stuff. I'm not going to spoil it. I see this cool stuff, and I'm like, what's going on over here? There's this cool stuff. I meet a guy, and I get the Kasurigama. It opened up the quest line and the NPC for the Kasurigama. Like, I just found that. I just stumbled upon that. I wasn't given a quest marker. I wasn't told to go over there. I just discovered it, and that's been the way that I've been experiencing it. And I even said, if you look on Twitter, a lot of people on Twitter that are loving this game are like 30 or 40 hours in, and they only have 1 or 2 stripes on their belt. They've barely even touched the Yotei 6 mainline story. They're primarily just engrossing themselves in the world. If Ralph has very much soured to open world games, as he says, you know, people can change, my worry and concern is that that's gonna really contribute to a lot of his viewpoint here, to the point that he's saying they didn't evolve at 1 iota. I'm like, man, I don't think that is something that I would agree with. That sounds like we played very different games. So
more than that, I really cannot overstate just how important writing is for me at this point. If you want me to saddle up for a familiar gameplay experience, then I'll do it, but the story better be really good. I look at the recent Silent Hill F, which had fairly basic visuals and some janky puzzles, and its combat was not good. But man, what an experience. The way its story and its characters immediately seared themselves into my memory. My first playthrough of Silent Hill F was 9 hours long, and I had thoughts and feelings and emotions throughout nearly every minute of it. I played Yotei for 40 hours, and I definitely never had to think at any point. We'll talk more about the quote-unquote puzzles later on. And in terms of feeling, the most pervasive one was boredom, and that's the truth. The point I made 5 years ago.
Thank you, D Dizzle, for 48 months and 8-Bit Dad for 31 months on YouTube. I greatly appreciate it. This is where This is where we get into subjectivity. So there's not a whole lot of reason to get stuck on these points that he's making about the story. I will say, I think playing it in Japanese has a pretty profound effect on my experience. Me being able to read what they're saying as opposed to hearing it spoken. I'm not dependent upon line delivery, tone of voice, any of that. I just hear Japanese. I feel like I'm being immersed in this epic tale taking place in some world that I'm not a part of, and I love it. I feel like I'm watching like a really great anime or something. So I do think the story and the writing is landing on me differently because of that. I'm not going to defend the story as if it's like some amazing, profound story. Every story has an archetype. This is obviously the revenge archetype. I would argue there are really, really significant themes that you won't pick up on if you're not paying careful attention. I actually don't think this story is about revenge. I'll do my own deep dive into the story, and I'll explain what I mean later. But I don't think this is just a cliche revenge story, but you have to listen very carefully. I don't know if it's because I'm playing it in Japanese. Maybe me reading the actual words, I'm treating it more like I would like a piece of literary work, and I'm noticing themes and words cropping up that maybe are lost when you play with the English voice actors. But again, I'm not going to keep getting stuck on disagreeing with him on the story. I think the story's been excellent. I think some of the side stories are remarkable. I'm planning on even doing some short pieces about some of the best side stories in this game that are just phenomenally done. So
about the need for new frontiers, I made that point because if you enjoy these sorts of open world games, then Ghost of Tsushima didn't have any flaws that needed to be fixed in a sequel. The only place Sucker Punch could go was innovation, and there's just none of it here. And imagine where Sucker Punch could have taken.
So he's doubled down again, and he says there's no innovation. I can't disagree with that any more strongly than I already have. To say there's not one iota of evolution, and I'll say there is no innovation. Oh my gosh, that feels like it's really missing some of the pretty significant things that they did. And the way I described it the other day is, the size of a change is not as important as its impact, okay? If I put a pebble in your shoe, it's very small, but the impact of what it's going to do to your day would be very disruptive until you removed it, right? So even a pebble can have massive impact. I think some of the small changes they made to open world exploration have had an enormous impact on my experience because I'm actually using those new things. So to say there's no innovation, to say there's no evolution, I don't agree. I think there's been a good amount of it, but you've got to engage with those things. I'm going to see if he can make his case. Is he going to say they were too weak or not significant enough? Is he going to acknowledge any of those changes at all? We will see as we watch the video.
In Yotei, what if it had adopted the curiosity-driven approach of something like Hell Is Us? What if they had a script as strong as Claire Obscure? What if it had adopted the decision-making and consequence of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? What if they'd made time a precious resource like the Altars? What if it had been co-op like modern Far Cry games? What if it had offered a really interesting and compelling loot game like the Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode did?
That's coming later.
I'm not saying that Yotei should have had all...
All right, hang on a second. Hang on a second. I got to thank Jack Garland for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Elder, she's Bay there. I said it. Thank you so much. Okay, there's a pretty significant problem with that montage that he just did. He went to a bunch of games that are completely and utterly different and was like, well, what if it did what these games did? Like, Expedition 33 was going to rise and fall on a very compelling and creative story. It needed that. I think the story in Yotei is good. I don't think it needed to be revolutionary and incredibly creative. The open world exploratory nature of Hell Is Us would never work in a game the size of Yotei, but here's the thing. That's a volitional choice. I'm choosing to play Yotei in that way. I'm listening to what people in town say. I'm having somebody give me a clue about a location on the map, and then I just go there and I explore and find stuff. I've had people point out with their actual hands, they're like, yeah, over there, there's this hot spring, okay? You can literally play Yotei the way that Hell Is Us is set up. You can ignore the icons. You can just stay in the open space. So for him to invoke Hell Is Us while seemingly maybe not knowing, maybe not engaging with the mechanics in Yotei, that you can play Yotei the way Hell Is Us is set up. You can just explore on your own, discover things on your own. You don't have to use the icons, the map, and the waypoints. You don't have to do that. That is how I've been experiencing Yotei. I don't think I'm alone in this, by the way. I think a lot of people are experiencing Yotei in that way. Invoking other games as well, like in that montage, yes, of course, other games have done new things with their formats, but they're very different games with very different approaches, and there is a Legends mode coming for free later. They've actually already announced that. It's possible that's out of his frame and he doesn't know that, but that is coming.
Of these things, or even any of these specific things, but just something, right? Like something to hang its hat on other than being an absurdly good-looking game that still has best-in-class combat for this type of game. Simon Cardy of IGN penned an op-ed recently that was titled, "I'm bored of every PlayStation game telling the same story." And I don't agree with that headline because I think it's pretty easily disproven, but I do agree with the vibe.
I agree. I think it's very easily disproven. I think that article fundamentally misunderstands the story of God of War Ragnarok because it thinks it's the same as The Last of Us Part 2. I can't say how egregiously in error that is. That is just not true. Like, that's not something I can disagree with, like what the guy at IGN said. Like, from a literary critical standpoint, to say that, like, God of War Ragnarok story is the same as The Last of Us Part 2, we don't have time to get into how wrong that is. So I'm interested in what Ralph's going to say as we continue here. Welcome back, Incoherent Rambler, and welcome back, Peachy Creamy. 16 months of memberships. Thanks so much. You guys only need 150 members to unlock the doubleheader tonight. Madam and I will play 2 different games, and one of them is Little Nightmares 3.
Vibe that I'm guessing possessed him when he sat down to write that. Ghost of Yotei is defined by the familiar feeling it evokes. The one where even though you're experiencing something new, your brain is telling you that you have seen this before. Its generic revenge story, its lifeless characters, its unchanged open world structure, and its familiar combat. Ghost of Yotei cements Ghost of Tsushima as the zenith of this genre. And unless studios are willing to remix things a hell of a lot more than this, then it's going to be all downhill from here.
I don't agree because I believe that this game has put things into it that we've seen in other open world games, and it contextualized it within how this world operates with the Wind especially. So I would argue that this is now the zenith. Like, this is what I expect from future open world games. I think this one is the one that they should be modeled after. See, I think this is the problem with the way he's setting this up is if you're creating an open world game right now and you just look at Tsushima and you don't look at Yotei, you're going to miss out on a lot of great features that change the open world experience in Yotei. And I think that's an egregious mistake to make, to be like, well, yeah, just copy Tsushima, it's the zenith. No, I believe Yotei has significantly elevated how an open world can be experienced because of its size and scope. They allow you to play it in the way you can play Hell Is Us, which is actually pretty ambitious to give the player that freedom if they want it, because it could literally lead to frustration. But open world design, I think, is quite good in this. And Jay Hart with a $5 super chat. I just beat the game. It took about 65 hours. I think the story is better than Tsushima and definitely more than a revenge story. I'm going to make a video in the future on, I think there are such deeper themes in this than just revenge. So when he says it's a generic revenge story, that also doesn't seem to line up with the experience I have had after a very similar amount of playtime as him. He said over 40 hours. I just hit 36 last night, so.
Ghost of Yotei is the story of Atsu, a girl whose parents are brutally murdered before her eyes by a group of people who seem to enjoy making children suffer for some reason. It's one of the things that never sat right with me about Yotei's storytelling. Its paper-thin narrative regularly reverting to cruelty towards children as a means of upping the dramatic stakes.
Oh my gosh. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a lot of developments in the story that this is not... No, I don't agree with this. No, that is not... No, this situation has so much more context and explanation. It's not people that just want to put people through cruelty. That's wow. Okay, we're gonna keep watching, but I don't want to spoil anything, but there are story elements and there are things you learn about the knight in question that really deepen. It's not a bunch of people that just like to hurt children.
I'm aware that violence and cruelty toward children exist in real life, but if you're going to invoke them as a narrative tool in your lighthearted MA15+ rated AAA open world action adventure game, you need to be pretty careful and clever with how you wield it. Sucker Punch wield that tool as a clumsy cudgel, smashing us over the head repeatedly as they drip-feed reveals of Atsu's family's final moments, painting vivid pictures of monstrous cruelty, only to then spend the remainder of the game's runtime trying to humanize these villains, handing them convenient excuses for their actions so that we're supposed to feel conflicted or something. This is where Tarantino got it right when he penned his opus and one of my top 3 favorite films of all time, Kill Bill. That was the story of a woman murdered by a gang of killers, her family ripped from her in an act of such irredeemable evil that there was no way that any of those people could come back from that. And Tarantino knew that, so he didn't try. When Beatrix came face to face with O-Ren Ishii, O-Ren didn't offer up some sub-story about how her dad didn't love her or how she was just following orders or some shit. She knew what was about to happen and they just got on with it. Bud even says that woman...
Okay, wow. All right, hang on a second. And I just want to restate, I'm usually in lockstep with Skillup in his reviews. I really respect it. I really do. I respect him. I love his content, and I'm going to say right now, this to me seems like a giant inconsistency in the position. Let me thank some super chats. A $10 super chat from Dark Taco. Happy Friday, everyone. Treat yourself. And then Incoherent Rambler with a $20 super chat. I love Ghost of Tsushima, but it was very simple, too simple. It was a collection of bandit camp simulator wrapped in a beautiful action game. It's not noticeable until a second playthrough. Ghost of Yotei is so much more. Thank you very much. Okay, here's the deal. There's a bit of an inconsistency here, okay? And I'm going to say this with respect, but I think this is an inconsistency. To say that it's a cliche revenge story and then take issue with the fact that the actual character development tries to add nuance and depth to the characters. It's like, wait, is it a cliche revenge story where you just have like this band of really evil people you got to go kill, which to me is canned, and we've all seen that story told, as he's referencing one right here that we've already seen and experienced. So Sucker Punch makes a story where there's more than meets the eye. Like, there's more going on than you think. It's not just like a random group of evil people did something evil, now somebody does revenge against evil people. Like, this seems inconsistent to say that it's just a cliche revenge story and then take issue with the ways that it breaks from being a generic revenge story. That doesn't seem consistent. You're like, well, it's just a cliche revenge story, it's generic, and then you're citing Kill Bill, which is a very generic cliche revenge story, which I love Kill Bill and I love Tarantino, but like, I don't, this again just feels like an inconsistency in the analysis of the story. To take issue where they break from cliches while calling it a cliche. I don't know. Let's keep watching.
Woman deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die. And yeah, when you murder a pregnant woman during her wedding rehearsal, then that tale of bloody revenge is going to have only one happy ending. But rather than embrace the cathartic revenge fantasy that might have worked when your inciting event is based on such malevolent cruelty, Sucker Punch want to turn it into an instructive fable about revenge being bad. And yeah, we know it is. So if you're going to tell us again, then you got to set it up right.
Thank you. $5 super chat from King of Spice says, I haven't even played the game and I can tell this review is just bad. Not an insult towards Ralph, but yeesh, this is rough. And then a 5-bomb comes in from Charles Freeman and gets us to 359. You guys are working on that goal for the week, and thank you for doing that. Your renewals, your upgrades, and your gifts help. Somebody says Kill Bill's not cliche. Kill Bill's story on paper is literally somebody killed and left for dead, and then they come back and kill everybody. That story's been told very many times. They don't ever try to give you some, like, heartwarming excuse or cliche excuse or nuance. Kill Bill is, they killed this person, left them for dead, they come back, they're going to kill everybody. We've seen that story told many, many times, okay? There's a whole backstory. Yes, I understand that. That's why whenever you would say, oh, a revenge story's cliche, Tarantino did an excellent job with the film and creates backstory, creates character arcs, creates depths to the people in the story. But on paper, you could say it's pretty cliche, right? Evil people did evil thing, revenge person comes, gets them all. Like, we've all seen these movies, and we've seen, you know, how many John Wicks now. So, listen, That's why it's not a good criticism to say, well, it's just a cliche revenge story, because Kill Bill in 1 and 2 are both phenomenal films, and it's got that Tarantino touch, fabulous soundtrack, excellent cinematography, great acting, great writing. It's got all of those pieces and parts, right? So that's my point, is if you're going to be reductionist about Yotei while citing Kill Bill, it's like you could do the same thing to Kill Bill. Spurned lover attacks the one who spurns him, and she gets revenge for it. That's cliche AF. It was amazingly told, but it's cliche. This is why I think people need to understand lots of stories are cliches. It's not about the cliche. There's only like 7 story arcs in existence. They all are one of those 7 story arcs that authors tends to tell. It's never about the arc itself. It's about the execution, okay? That's why Tarantino deserves credit, because he took a cliche story arc, a common story arc, and he told it in an incredible way. So, taking issue with Yotei actually having depth and nuance to the characters and not just being go kill all the baddies, to me, I don't think that's consistent in the review.
When The Last of Us Part 2 dwelt on revenge being bad, it at least had a really compelling starting point. Joel did what he did not out of mindless cruelty or out of revenge, but out of a deep instinctual urge to protect his adopted child. You can understand why a man might do that, and so exploring the ripple effects of that act and the decision to choose to stay locked in a cycle of vengeance when that's the starting point, that's inherently very interesting, even if you don't agree with all the ways that Part 2 did that exploration. But if Last of Us Part 1 ended with Joel gleefully murdering 2 parents in front of their screaming children, and then murdering both of those children, one by pinning them to a burning tree with a katana through the shoulder, I'm gonna think to myself, Ellie, Joel got what he deserved, and you should go home. If it sounds like I'm dwelling too much on this, it's because Yotei has nothing else other than this one-dimensional, poorly constructed revenge story. The historical backdrop of the Mongol invasion is obviously gone, but there's no other broader historical event to take its place. Similarly, there's no exploration of the samurai code and what it means to abandon one's honor, because Atsu isn't a samurai. But there's nothing to replace that either. Atsu is a faceless mercenary who wanders the land as an almost ephemeral presence. She doesn't represent a place since she was displaced from her home at an early age. She doesn't represent a moment in time because she's untethered from societal structures or class roles. She doesn't represent a specific military or martial art tradition since she adopts whatever tools are at hand. Her only quest is against the Yotei 6, and her only arc is a moral one. Is revenge worth it if it means throwing everything else away? The answer will shock you. Shorn of the historical, cultural, and...
So, again, without getting into spoilers, and the fact that he cleared the game in a little over 40 hours, and I'm at like right behind him at 36, and I'm not even remotely close to being done. I really worry that Ralph didn't play enough of the side content, because I, again, couldn't disagree with him more here. This is the strongest I could disagree with somebody. There is so much more to this story than that. Like, she's constantly talking with people about redemption, about forgiveness, about change. And you could say, well, that's all attached to the, the moral of the story, which is that revenge is bad. Again, if you're going to tell a cliche story, it's in the execution, right? And if you don't allow all those side quests and side stories to land, some of the mercy that she has on people, some of the empathy that she has, like the side quest of the Crimson Kimono or the Spider Lily, these are quests that really raise Atsu from just this like traveling mercenary that wants to kill people to there's a lot more thoughtfulness and reflection going on. And her conversations in the side quests and in the side missions really do add to that. Like, I've really grown to say, I was concerned about this story from the beginning. You guys know, leading up to the release, I said, I'm really worried it's going to be just a cliche revenge story. The story in Tsushima was so reflective on honor and what is right and whose view of honor was correct. The uncle, or Jin. I think, Lord Shimura and him going back and forth, that was excellent. And this game, the world itself and the people that Atsu's interacting with, they're the sounding board of what she's going through. And if you don't play those missions, you're going to miss out on a lot of that stuff. The people in their quest really brought out the kinder side of Atsu. Yeah, the Ainu, yes, those people in particular, I just engaged with some quests with them last night. I'm telling you, those conversations really bring out more of the story than just a revenge story.
Thematic adornments which often define these samurai epics, Ghost of Yotei feels hollow and fungible. Like you could set the same story in the medieval English countryside and you wouldn't need to change a whole lot. You wouldn't need to sub in a Viking invasion or an English king and his court or a meddlesome clergy or a burgeoning foreign commercial interest or anything. You wouldn't need to do any of that Control-C, Control-V because there's nothing to Control-C. That isn't to say that every...
And again, I actually think the setting being within Japanese culture, which has elements of honor and shame and meditation and reflection, and there's a mystical nature to some of their beliefs. There's mystical natures and mystical beliefs about Atsu and what she's doing and what she is. I don't think you could transplant this story into another time, because if you did, you would lose those elements. Like a Viking setting wouldn't have all this self-reflection, meditation, mystical beliefs about animals and mystical beliefs like the wolves. And, I think there's significance to the fact that she's called a wolf. There's so much symbolism within that. It's almost like a myth. It's almost like, mythology meets an Aesop fable. And that's something that I think Yotei does because of the setting. Like, I don't think you could transplant this story into any other time and place and have it work as well, because that nature works so well with what she's contemplating and meditating about. And if you set it into another place, yes, Vikings have lots of mythology. You guys are interacting with what I'm saying. I'm saying that the setting for her to question what she's doing within the confines of honor, shame, meditation, internal reflection wouldn't work in another context. You'd have to completely change the elements of it. You'd have to put it into more of a strength, weakness mentality. Like if you go into like Viking or Greek or settings like that, their mythology is going to be more about strength versus weakness. There aren't really elements of forgiveness in a lot of those places either, and like what violence does to your soul. These are elements that are going to come up in an honor shame culture more than a culture of strength weakness dichotomy. So I don't necessarily think that you can just transplant this story in another place in time. You'd lose all of those elements. You lose all those cultural underpinnings of what she is, what they think she is, and how she's processing everything that's happening to her within that framework. It's all there. And so I don't think you could copy paste this story. No. Vikings were deeply tied to animals. I think this could copy paste well. To be fair, I think we're falling back into the mistake of being like, well, it's a stereotypical story. You could say that to any story ever. You could take any story that you love and think is amazing. Like, you could literally take the story of Jin Sakai and place it in a medieval setting and just have him working within the hierarchy of a kingdom and the honor of his father and the strength that he has to show in battle. And you could do the same thing. You could transplant Tsushima's story into a medieval setting, change all the cultural touch points as to why Jin would break from his uncle's lead as king, and you could have the same story. I mean, that's, again, I think that's a very significant, weak criticism to just be like, well, you could transplant the story to any time and place. You could do the same thing with Jin Sakai's story, which is a phenomenal story, but you'd rip it from the honor-shame culture, and you'd have to put it into like a strength-weakness culture, and then you could do it. You could put it into a medieval setting easily and have it be like, well, there's mystical things, and there's animals, and there's caves with weird stories that you go and you talk to a bear. I mean, you could do all these things in a medieval setting as well and just swap out the animals. I don't think that's a criticism of Yotei, because you could lobby that at any game in virtually any time.
Feudal Japan era epic needs to tick all of these boxes, but it is notable that Yotei ticks like none of them, and the flimsy revenge tale isn't strong enough to carry Yotei over the line on its own. Ghost of Tsushima's biggest weakness was its storytelling. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't doing too much either. Still, between the Mongol invasion and Jin's revenge story and his personal struggle with his code and his honor, and with a smattering of worthwhile side stories here and there, it ultimately came together well enough, but it was still easily the weakest part of that experience. Earlier I said that Sucker Punch had essentially perfected this style of open world game and that there was nowhere else for it to go, but I never said anything about the story. That was far from perfect in Ghost of Tsushima, and there were many places that it could have gone here in Yotei. If Sucker
And here, after doing my deep dive into Ghost of Tsushima, I actually think Ghost of Tsushima's story is remarkably told. It's really well told. I mean, I showed my video to a guy who has a PhD in like literary criticism, and he said that it was actually, he was impressed that Tsushima was written by a team of writers and not one writer, because of the through line of the themes and the through line of the story in a game that was so long was actually one of its strengths. So Tsushima's story is so well told. I mean, we have a video on the channel right now called What is Honor, and I would really encourage you guys to watch it, because I do really think it shows just how good the story is in Ghost of Tsushima.
Punch had no plans to meaningfully expand the gameplay side of this experience, then priority number 1, 2, and 3 should have been story. Instead, here what we get is a massive downgrade, and had this been stronger, it might have helped you forget that you've already seen and experienced almost all of what Ghost of Yotei has to offer.
Thank you for 8 months, Monkus. I'll add you to the total. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you guys are smashing like on YouTube. I appreciate you guys hanging out for this experiment. Again, there will be a link below for Skillup's video. Support the original creator. Leave nice comments. Even though I'm disagreeing with him, I still think he's a really great creator and makes great content.
This is typically the point in the review where I belt out 1,000 words on Yotei's open world design, but the truth is, I really don't have anything new to say about it that I haven't already said of the first game. There are some aesthetic differences, though that's not quite the right word. It's more accurate to say that the veneer of certain activities has been altered or replaced. The substance remains the same. Chasing foxes is a good example. You can still do that here, but now you can also chase wolves who lead you to places where other wolves have been captured, deepening your connection to the wolf that watches over you during your journey.
We're getting this one out of here.
So my concern here is I've not pre-watched this, okay? I've not pre-watched this. This is a raw reaction. My concern here now is he's going to engage with the technical aspects of the gameplay loop as opposed to the ways that they updated the experiential elements of the open world. If he completely glides over those things, I think it's going to be obvious why the open world frustrated him. If you treat it in that way, if you're just sort of bouncing from activities and you're not using those new features, again, it seems like he's engaging with the technical aspects of the gameplay loop and not the actual experiential immersive things they added that were not in Tsushima. I'm very interested to see if he even mentions them.
Instead of composing haiku, Atsu now paints using the DualSense's touchpad as a canvas. So you get what I'm saying, right? These things are both technically new, but they don't feel new. They fit within the existing open world design framework without really expanding or improving it. Outside of that, it's all the same stuff. Climbing cliff sides to unlock shrines, bamboo strikes, clearing out enemy camps, and getting your kid off to take a bath and do some deep thinking.
Mount Yotei, the she-mountain. I used to greet her every morning.
Now, to be clear, Yotei does what Ubi don't, which is meter out all this stuff in perfect measure and serve it up to you so organically that it never feels like busy work, more like pleasant detours. You'll chart a course toward a main objective when suddenly a little birdie appears beckoning you to follow, or you'll spot a traveler being shaken down, or you'll collide with an occupied village. Yotei's world design is essentially a number of valleys or fields or basins, and that means you can strike out in any direction at any time, and when you do that, you're sure to quickly, very quickly, find something to do. The shortness of these activities and how easy it is to stumble upon them, it all makes them feel quite snackable. It's like Sushi Train, where the little plates of food come to you and you can be like, yeah, I'll have some of that, or nah, I'm good, and because it's so effortless, so well portioned, and so tasty, it's a great way to eat. Moderation and convenience are the secret sources of Sucker Punch's open world design. All of this remains as good here in Yotei as it...
Now here's the thing. He is so right here. He's so dead on correct. And I think the real disappointment for me is if you would have used like the spyglass and the more emergent exploration approach that I'm taking, those things would sing, okay? The way they're spaced out, the open world design, as he's saying, it's more snackable, it's more consumable. Like, you don't feel like it's redundant and stupid. Like, the way that they've spaced these things out, the way that they dot the map, right? If you're discovering them organically, if you're using spyglass and the wind and you're not constantly pulling open your map, these elements of the game just sing because you feel like you genuinely discovered a pillar with a sword leaning against it, or a person that needs your help, or a place for you to soak for a minute and increase your health. You feel like you genuinely discovered them, especially if somebody says, hey, you look like you're a weary traveler, there's a hot spring over there, and you just go go and look for it. If you play the game that way, everything he just said and praised gets magnified, and it's even better because the world just feels alive. Like, you don't, and this is what I tried to tell people, I don't feel like I'm playing some linear video game with distractions along the way. I feel like I'm quite literally discovering a world and the story's happening at the same time. Does that make sense? A lot of times when you play a game like this, you feel like the story's kind of dragging you along, and then along the way there's distractions and there's side activities. I feel the complete opposite. I feel like I'm discovering a world. I'm nomadic. I'm looking for clues. I'm talking to people. I'm checking every nook and cranny because I'm trying to find the Yotei 6. While I am doing that, the story is transpiring, almost interwoven with it. It feels more organic and more real. I really do worry that this game got booted up by folks like this, and they just started pulling open the map and playing it like a traditional open world game, and they missed that romance of, like, let this game just open to you and use those new features. Because I think he's right. The way that they implement a lot of the activities is so well done. It doesn't feel like it's too much. It doesn't feel bloated. I've always said Tsushima's open world is one of the best I've ever cleared because it feels good to clear it. It doesn't feel like a nuisance. It doesn't feel like a chore. Sucker Punch is very good at open world design.
Did in Tsushima, but it's no better, and I've already experienced most of this before, and I didn't really enjoy experiencing it again, or at least I enjoyed it way less. One thing I did enjoy more were the weapon training side quests. These are each tied to a region, and you go and find some weapons master who's living in hiding. They'll be reluctant to train you at first, but eventually you'll get them on side. Learning the dual katana was perhaps the best one because Sucker Punch had managed to gamify the 1980s training montage in a way that no other video game had been able to do. The way the difficulty of the task was calibrated to denote the strength of my left arm, and how I could see and feel myself getting steadily better as the sensei trained me was a really great moment. Later
100% agree with Ralph here. The dual katana training was the best. Odachi so far has been the worst. Kasurigama's pretty good. I don't have the spear yet. But dual katanas, unfortunately, really sets a bar. It's like one of the first, I think it's the first that you get, unless you're very intentional and you avoid it or something. It really sets a bar that I don't feel like the rest of the training ever hits, which is unfortunate because it did such a good job. And I thought this is going to be great if every time we train. Maybe they didn't want it to feel that way, like a copy-paste mission structure, so the missions all themselves are quite a bit different. Maybe that's on purpose. I don't know. But yes, I completely agree with him on the training on the dual katanas. It was excellent.
Quests would involve me solving problems throughout the region, with those quests giving me access to new techniques and weapon upgrades. It felt very fitting for a journey of this type. Less impressive were Sucker Punch's attempts at puzzles. One of the regions sees you chasing a member of the Yotei 6 known as the Kitsune, and they're meant to be a tricksy fox reliant on subterfuge and misdirection. The way that Sucker Punch tries to sell you on this is that the Kitsune has left puzzles all throughout the region, but they're so mind-numbingly basic that I found myself infuriated by them. We're talking Cocomelon level brain teasers here. We're putting any and all thought into them is to give them far too much credit. I bristle at these sorts of puzzles because it's like, is this a game for children or adults? Like, you have to pick one. If I'm watching scenes of children being gruesomely murdered, then I guess you want me to take this thing seriously. But if you're asking me to solve puzzles that your average preschooler would breeze through, then what are we doing here? I know it's...
Well, listen, I kind of agree and kind of don't. Number one, I don't know if preschoolers could solve some of these. I mean, you got to walk around and remember symbols. If you don't remember the symbols, you can bring them up with the touchpad. You know, a lot of them is literally like, okay, symbol for left, right, up, down, and death, okay, and execute or whatever. And so, to me, I'm okay with this. So, like, while I think he's correct that the puzzles are very straightforward, I don't think they needed to be complex. I don't think that would have been conducive to the game, the story, or the genre. It would have felt a little bit like, I don't know, it would have felt a little bit forced or a little bit awkward. This isn't Tomb Raider. You know, we're not trying to get into tombs. We're not trying to get into vaults where, like, you know, there's these intricate pieces of technology to keep us out. We're in a civilization that wouldn't have much to create these types of traps or these types of, you know, contraptions to, you know, to keep us, you know, eluded from finding the door or opening the door. So I don't necessarily think that this is some kind of a glaring problem with the game. It feels more in line with the genre. It also feels more in line with the game that they build. It doesn't necessarily feel like because they're simple, that's a huge flaw. If they were super complex, I feel like people would have said the same thing. Like, this feels really out of place to have these super complex ciphers and puzzles. This is Ghost of Yotei. Ghost of Tsushima, didn't have anything like that. I will say this. I always prefer a game with puzzles to just set the expectation and stay consistent with the expectation, and that's what Yotei does. I couldn't stand it in Ragnarok where, like, I'd walk into a room, and the minute we were in the room, Atreus is like, I think we need to swing that thing over there. Like, thank goodness you don't have a companion in this game yapping in your ear telling you the solution, like, before you even get a chance to look at it. So I thought the puzzles were fine, and I don't know if they're that simple that, like, a preschooler could solve them.
Sounds like a small gripe blown out of proportion, but Yotei and Ghost of Tsushima as well are experiences that are designed in such a way that you never really have to think. It's that sushi train design of the open world coming to you rather than you going to it. So it's notable that the one time Ghost of Yotei does ask you to think, it basically assumes that you can't. In closing out this block on world design, I want to be really clear about why I sound so down on it. It's not that it's bad, it's great in fact, and had I been experiencing all of this for the first time, I'm sure I would have loved this because I loved it in Tsushima, but it's the same, and I actually would have been okay with that had the story delivered. You probably know this about me already if you've watched enough of my reviews, but I don't view games as a sum of their pros and cons. If a game can get something really, really right, then I'm on board and I focus on that thing, and my brain kind of forgives or ignores a lot of what sits around that thing. Silent Hill F is, again, the perfect example, but if there's nothing like that, nothing that really hooks me and that can soak up my attention, then my complaints become much more generalized because I have more time to think about all the reasons I'm not enjoying something. Yotei's world design is no better or worse than Tsushima's, but without having a satisfying, rewarding plot to pull me through that world, I looked around and thought to myself, I've done all this before, and I'm not really in the mood to do it again.
Okay, so I'm going to say, and I said this from the outset, I'm not surprised. He didn't mention any of the things they changed about the open world. He didn't. Let me just list the ways that the open world can be experienced differently that actually would have worked against some of his frustration. And funny enough, I think it would have made him enjoy the story more, because I think he would have discovered some of these side quests and some of these side missions that really add to Atsu as a character and really add to the story arc. So number one, the spyglass mechanic being paired with the wind mechanic is a really, really brilliant piece of innovation. It's a small change that has an enormous impact on your experience. Multiple times, I would be in an area where there was a rumored thing, or I used the cartographer and I knew there was a shrine in the area, but I wanted to kind of discover it on my own. I got out the spyglass. Sure enough, there's the yellow tree. Sure enough, there's the pagoda. There's the camp. There's a wall I can climb, right? So using the spyglass, putting a marker right there with the spyglass, and then you just slide up and the wind will make sure you're going to your new destination. This keeps you in the world and very much, I think, immersively gets this feeling of nomadic mercenary trying to find her way in an unfamiliar place, looking for clues, whatever. The second thing they do, you can play music that you've learned to have the wind guide you to a particular thing. Are you looking for a bamboo strike, a wolf, a shrine, whatever? You play that song and then the wind changes course. This is one other facet of the game that allows you to just stay in the game. You don't have to leave. The camping method, a completely new thing that was not in the first game, keeps you in the world. You camp, you can make a meal that gives you a temporary benefit, and NPCs can visit you. This again is an opportunity for you just to stay in the world. I mean, there was a time where I learned a song and I thought that song was so cool, I want to hear it again. I made a campfire, I played the song, I played it for the woman that fixes my bow, and she remarked on the fact that I'm not just some mindless mercenary. I can actually play music rather well. There was a time where I played music with a guy, and you end up playing with music with him, like, as he's basically slowly dying and watching the sunset. Like, these are the types of things that happen in the open world when you play in that way. He didn't talk about any of those pieces of innovation and how they change the way you can experience the open world. There are entire articles about this before the game came out. Welcome back, Kenneth. Thanks so much for renewing your membership. There were entire articles about how they were trying to change the open world experience. I'm really bummed because one of the reasons I like Skillup, one of the reasons I like his content, he's very thoughtful and he's very thorough. And in this particular way, he seemingly just wasn't. It's like he just didn't even mess with any of that stuff. Or if he did, it had zero impact on his experience. I'm kind of bummed for him, like as like a somebody adjacent to his enjoyment of Tsushima. I'm like, you love Tsushima, and I really think you approach this game in a way that really hindered your enjoyment. And I feel kind of bad. It's like I'm sitting here loving it, and I feel like I played it very differently, and that's part of the reason why.
The foundations of combat in Ghost of Yotei are just as strong as they were in Ghost of Tsushima, and I'd argue that they're even stronger here. The biggest difference is that Atsu is now able to wield up to 5 weapons, seamlessly switching between them to counter enemy weaknesses. The term rock, paper, scissors gets thrown around a lot. I think you'll struggle to find a review of Yotei that doesn't use that term, but that's because it's 100% accurate. Dual katanas beat polearms beat kusurigama beats shields, Odachi beats brutes, and katanas beat, well, katanas. These new weapons do open up space for unique combos and maneuvers that make the already strong combat framework better. You can drive a polearm into an opponent's chest to skewer them before seamlessly switching to a katana for a charged, unsheathing attack. There's also quickfire weapons like kunai and smoke bombs and a pistol, so you can weave those into your flow such that you're attacking both near and far, clashing steel before suddenly vanishing into a cloud of smoke. It is cool as hell, both in terms of how it looks and how it feels. We talk a lot about the Sony movie game and we think that's all about cutscenes. There's another dimension to that that's often overlooked: cinematic action. The way that combat is framed in games like Horizon and God of War and Yotei looks incredible, but there's no sacrificing playability to achieve those results. This is not style over substance, it's style and substance. It isn't as deep or demanding as more niche offerings, but it's just the right mix of accessibility versus complexity. And while I wasn't invested in Yotei's story and its open world wasn't doing anything I hadn't experienced before, combat encounters were always something I look forward to, and even now I'd happily boot up Yotei again just to feel the weight of the blade in Atsu's hand.
My only thing about combat that I will say, I'm loving it. I wish I could turn the blue flashes off. I only need to see the red flashes and the yellow flashes. I feel like I can react to enemy telegraphs better when the blue flash isn't coming up. I feel like the blue flash is super distracting and it messes up my telegraph read. I need to know when it's red and I need to know when it's yellow. I don't need to see the blue ones. Like I wish they didn't. I wish there was a way to turn that off, because I'm watching this footage and I'm thinking, man, this is great footage. You know, you're really hitting your parries and your blocks rather consistently. But I find that a lot of my fights get crazy clumsy because the blue flashes completely mess with me. I don't feel like they're helpful in the least. I just need to see red and yellow. But other than that, I have found the combat to be, as he said, an improvement and even an elevation of the first game.
While the fundamentals of combat are strong as hell, the itemization and progression are real missed opportunities, I think. Take upgrading your weapon, for example. Mostly it's just collecting some resources laying around each region and then damage goes up. Your weapon doesn't get any new capabilities or status effects or whatever when this happens. It's literally just number go up. Where the game does try to offer more variation is with armor, but it doesn't really land either. I played this game for 40 hours and I never really found a single armor set that I was truly happy with, except for the samurai looking one. But I don't want my Atsu to look like a samurai because she looks cool as hell in the Ronin kit. But there was no way to change the look of my gear separate from its bonuses, so I was stuck wearing an armor set that I didn't really like. Other armor sets I'd unlock all had big annoying trade-offs or pointless bonuses that made them unappealing. I suppose the intention was that you'd put up with that stuff and compensate for it with charms that give you additional bonuses. But again, a lot of them were just kind of pointless filler, stuff that gave me bonuses in very, very specific circumstances rather than more broad-based utility. With 5 distinct
this is actually a really good criticism from him that I agree with. I do think Tsushima was always hurt by this. Yotei is hurt by this. No transmog, I think, hurts the game because there's incredible armor sets, but then their perks are just kind of like, why would I want that, right? There are some that have cool perks. Like there's an armor set completely built around disarming enemies for throwables. There's one built around stealth. Like there's one built around your bow. And with loadouts, I have loadouts where my charms and my armor are all built around a particular thing. I'm not really using that, but if ever I want to, if I'm like, wow, this mission's going to be really focused on stealth or using the bow, whatever, I've got my loadouts for that. I do agree with him here, though. There's so many charms. So many of them are pointless and worthless. They're great when you start out and you're just kind of filling charm slots, but all of a sudden you've got like a monsoon of them, and I would say, 10% of them are worth using and the rest are like not worth using at all. So that, again, is something I agree with. It's like they could have trimmed it down and had charms that were more about a build. And when you build into that, one thing I do like about the charms is they have challenges in them. And when you do the challenge, it levels the charm up. This, again, I think would be grounds to say, hey, Sucker Punch, you guys could really trim down the number of charms and just have them set around a certain build, especially with how they use them as a reward. You could, like, do a mission for a guy who's really sneaky, and he gives you a really good charm for sneaking. You see what I'm saying? Like, they could weave that within the world itself and not need to have so many. I'm also always going to be in favor of transmog because I want to look cool. You've got literal NPCs that sell dye to change the color of the armor. There's some killer armor sets in this I have no interest in wearing because of the perks that they deliver. That's always a bit of a bummer.
Weapon types. I would have loved an itemization system that let me really specialize with one or two weapons, but there just aren't enough options across the itemization pool to allow for that. I suppose that's by design though, since the rock, paper, scissors combat design wants you to switch between weapons instead of just riding a favorite, but even then, some more agency in buildcraft would have been nice. It's funny because the itemization is a massive step back versus what was offered in the Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode, which came out after the initial release of Tsushima all those years ago. That was a PvE co-op add-on that allowed you to specialize into specific combat roles, and the itemization underpinning that experience was surprisingly deep. Now, it's a totally different framework there, so you couldn't lift and drop it here in Yotei, but the depth and the complexity and the agency would have been nice if Yotei had its own version of that, and it doesn't. Something similar can be said of character progression, where the various skill trees aren't really about picking specific perks to create a build, they're more just about picking all of the perks so that you can steadily unlock everything over time.
He's correct in this, and this was kind of similar in Tsushima. Ralph's 100% correct here. I've never been a big fan of skill trees that just do this. It's like, I tell you what, why don't you just reward me the skill unlocks the more I use the weapon? Like, as she levels up, her base armor just levels up, right? It just gets better. It'd be cool if the weapons did that too, making me come in here and fill out what is basically a super linear skill tree. I agree with him. Just don't even bother with this song and dance. You're giving me the illusion of choice. There were a couple decisions early on that were nice, right? Where you choose a particular skill before another one. I'm to the point now where basically I have everything and I get a skill point. I'm like, well, I guess I'll unlock this skill I had no interest in until this point, but I got to get rid of the skill tree, the skill point or whatever. So I would say if you want to go with the linear approach, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Just do it then. Don't have what Zubair is saying. You're not choosing what skill to use. You're choosing the order. That's exactly right. Linear skill trees have always been a little annoying to me. At least in Horizon Forbidden West, they're linear skill trees, but they're elaborate, and there's 6 of them. In this, it just generally feels like you're getting so many perks and leveling relatively quickly, but by finding the shrines. You're just slowly moving down through the skill tree of the weapons.
Again, a narrower but deeper set of options that demanded some decision making and trade-offs would have made for a more engaging and personalized combat experience, allowing you to craft an Atsu that was uniquely yours, while also encouraging additional playthroughs if you're into that sort of thing. But look, consistent with what I said earlier, Sucker Punch really nailed the combat in Tsushima, and they've nailed it again here in Yotei. So I'm not too bothered by these progression and itemization issues. The new weapons, the expanded roster of enemies, the quickfire weapons, and the side quests associated with unlocking new techniques all make for a more robust experience, true improvements on a combat model that already felt like it couldn't get much better.
100% agree with him, and I think what I'd say is the skill tree quibble's not that big of a deal because you really do feel like you're getting better. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like I'm getting better with the various skills, the weapons, and the abilities. It doesn't really matter the order that I get them or the freedom that I have within a skill tree to pick them. Does that make sense? I can brush that criticism off the table and say, listen, combat feels phenomenal. I'm getting better with the Kasurigama. I'm getting better, switching from dual katana to single katana or odachi when the occasion arises that I need to. My skill expression matters more because you literally are, I think, sort of locking in with the progression of Atsu. She starts out really rough and needs help and needs to get stronger and needs to progress. So as she's experiencing that in the story, you're experiencing that as the player as well. This is something that I think Sucker Punch really excels at. They give you a certain amount of things you can do and abilities you can use and choices to make within combat. And when you're doing that, you're getting better in sort of conjunction with the story of like your notoriety is rising, like you're becoming this known thing. I think they are masterful at that. Like, I'm getting better because you're giving me more things to try and to use and to master, and then everybody's talking about this Onryo that's traveling the countryside and is getting more and more vicious, like her bounty posters change every time. I think that's great. I think they've done an excellent job. I don't have any disagreement here with this section.
Please don't get involved.
Find every last member of the Yotei Six.
Okay, so let's wrap up this review. Firstly, it would be very unfair of me not to mention how breathtakingly beautiful Ghost of Yotei is. Like, it's just staggeringly stunning, and no YouTube video can do it justice. Seeing this on your own hardware, big screen TV, HDR, mate, it is just unbelievable. As a PC main, it's the kind of game that makes me go, you know what, console fans? I get it. When you can enjoy something that looks this good and runs this well on a device that costs, $750 tops, and you don't need to worry about any of the hassle that comes with PC gaming, I get it. It wouldn't make me a console main, but I get it. And it's almost humbling to see what Sucker Punch have delivered here when so many other games look worse and run worse on hardware that is far, far more expensive.
This is a section that can't really be overstated. What they have achieved with this game in the realm of performance and fidelity. I know that people are trying to do this thing online. They're trying to be like, AC Shadows look so much better. Look at the water. Okay. The fact that you have to specifically go to water or specific sections of the game to try to make this game look bad, I think that's a pretty clear indication that people are arguing in bad faith. Anybody with eyeballs and a decent television is going to tell you this game looks incredible. I showed screenshots and I showed footage to a friend of mine who's not really a gamer. He gamed when he was a teenager, but now he just doesn't have time. And he was blown away. He's like, that looks real. Okay. So I would say this is something that cannot be overstated. Sucker Punch has achieved something that is absolutely incredible. This level of fidelity, this level of performance on a console, I think is really, really worthy of praise. And I think it adds to the experience. Similarly to what happened to me with AC Shadows was the game was gorgeous, that global illumination, the foliage, the world, the vibe. The reason I ran out of steam in AC Shadows is because the combat didn't carry it. And in Yotei, I'm 36 hours in, and I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface. I feel like I'm just kind of getting started. And that's because the combat, the exploration, the side stories are all sort of keeping me engaged. So I totally get that Ralph didn't get into gear with this game, and so he probably had to drag himself across the finish line the way that I felt with AC Shadows. So I understand when a game just doesn't lock into gear with you, and it doesn't seem like this one did. Unfortunately, it seems like that was kind of by design in his approach. He expected ground-level changes to the genre. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation for a sequel. A sequel's largely going to build on its predecessor, so expecting it to not do that doesn't seem like a reasonable expectation. And second, he did not seem to acknowledge... No, he flat out didn't acknowledge any of the changes to, open-world exploration. He also didn't seem to engage with them, which I think affected his experience, so...
Soundtrack, man. Atsu carries a shamisen with her, and in addition to playing songs throughout the game, the soundtrack is heavily leveraged into this instrument, and frankly, it's incredible. It's not background listening like so many other soundtracks are. The percussive nature of the shamisen brings it to the forefront during chase sequences and combat duels, and it's just a brilliant stylistic choice that gives Yotei its own identity and its own fingerprint. In the future,
Yeah, I really like their use of the music. Like, as soon as the wolf theme song starts to play and I'm like chasing a wolf across the countryside, I'm like, I'm there. I'm like, this is dope. Let's go. Let's ride. Like, it adds such a vibe into the fights and the duels especially. It really does. The music, the soundtrack, it'll likely lose original score to Expedition 33 because that soundtrack has just been so highly praised. This game soundtrack is just absolutely phenomenal. Ralph trashed Assassin's Creed, but it didn't stop millions of people disagreeing with him and having a great time. I've not watched his AC Shadows review. I'd be very curious as to see where he landed on the stuff that, like, do we align on that game? I'm typically always aligned with him. Like, I loved his Deathloop review because he said all the things I was trying to say, and he said it so much better, and with his charming accent. It was like, this is a great video. I was very frustrated by the way that Returnal was treated by the press and the Game Awards, and the way that, like, Deathloop got this strange, darling treatment. Like, he did a very good job in that review.
I think back to what it was like to play through Yotei. I think the first thing I'm going to recall is the strum of the shamisen as I crossed swords or followed a wolf or just sat quietly on a cliffside. The shamisen stands out as a defining part of Yotei not only because of its inherent identity, but also because there are very few other aspects of Yotei that manage to leave any mark at all. Atsu's tale of revenge begins suddenly, and the brutality of its inciting incident is at odds with the rest of the game's tone or the message it tries to impart with its awkward storytelling. There's no broader historical drama to serve as backdrop, no societal or cultural reflections. Cast of characters you meet are mainly vendors, but for a very small handful of characters who play a central role in your story, and while these characters can have their moments, they aren't strong enough to make up for Yotei's wafer-thin plot. From a gameplay perspective, Ghost of Yotei's combat improvements are notable, but it's the underlying brilliance of the combat model that stands out most. It survives a second outing where the world design does not. Yotei may be set in a different location, but it feels the same as the previous game, and the cosmetic additions or changes can't offset that niggling, ever-present feeling that you've seen and done all of this before. When Ghost of
That I think is kind of, again, unavoidable in a sequel. Like, you're going to climb a shrine and bow to it. You're going to do a standoff in an open field. You're going to take over a camp, okay? When you went from Horizon Zero Dawn to Horizon Forbidden West, you did the same thing, right? You went to things that were familiar and you engaged with them. This is where I'm going to keep coming back to. They made small changes that have big impact only if you let them. It's like putting a pebble in your shoe. It's this tiny thing that really has this big impact, right? And that's not the greatest analogy because a pebble in your shoe would be annoying, okay? This is like adding a flute to a score of music. If you do it right, just that flute and a very simple melody can completely change the song. And I think that this game added those things that completely changed the song. The harmony of the open world really needs those things to tie it together. And if you don't engage with those mechanics, I really do think, and you can't re-knit this sweater. You can't. Like, I don't think Ralph could go back and play the game and be like, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't play it this way. I'm going to play it this way. It's going to feel better. It's too late. Like, that train has left the station. Once you've played the game in a more traditional open world approach, instead of the way that some of the rest of us are playing it, we're playing it more organic. We're playing it more emergent, and in the way that you play Hell Is Us, you can't really do that again. You can't go back and try again. It's unfortunate, but I just don't think that you can. I think that train has left the station. Like, you're already too familiar with the world and the locales and the areas to redo it, unfortunately.
Tsushima burst onto the scene, it was held up as the anti-Ubisoft game. It seemed like it was a response to all of the frustrations we had with Ubisoft's open world design model, as its pacing, moderation, and convenience all felt like a breath of fresh air. In contrast, Ghost of Yotei feels like the quintessential Ubisoft game. Not in its design philosophy, but in the sense that a studio found a really good formula, and so they just pushed out another one without any real change or innovation. For that reason, my recommendation for Yotei is similar to my recommendation for Assassin's Creed Shadow. This is a good game, but you know what it is, and you've played it before, and if you're excited by the prospect of playing it again, you are going to enjoy yourself. But if you're looking for something new, you won't find it here. And I'll say again what I said back in 2020. Ghost of Tsushima perfected this formula. There is nowhere else to take it. Yotei proves that.
Now, hang on, though. Hang on. So, hang on. I want to yell. I want to like, are you kidding me? Like, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If they perfected it and you don't feel like the formula can go anywhere else, how is that a fair criticism? Like, do you see what I'm saying? I feel like there's a logical incoherence there. It's like, now wait just a minute. If you're saying that you perfected the formula and you really don't feel like the formula can go anywhere, that doesn't seem fair. Like, you're criticizing the game for doing something that you're like, yeah, there's really nowhere else to go. Like, you know, you liked Horizon Forbidden West. I really do think this comes back to his transparency in the beginning about, like, sometimes people change. I think he's soured on open world games, and that's why he can love Horizon Forbidden West and play Yotei and be like, there's nothing new here. And I'm like, but there are new things. You didn't engage with them. You didn't engage with those new things. And I am engaging with those new things, and I'm having a completely different experience than you. I just did a retrospective on Tsushima. I'm very familiar with the open world, the design, the flow, the nature of that game. It's one of my favorite games. It's one of my all-time favorite games. Yotei is such an elevation of this approach, and I just think he missed it. He just didn't see those things. And listen, this is an organic experiment. When you play a game, your mood is going to play a part. Your deadline's going to play a part. The game that you just played is going to play a part, right? It's an organic experiment. And so Ralph, as a person, as a human being, I just think that this is a clear indication into, like, sometimes the way you approach a game and your expectations will have an incredible result in dictating your conclusion. It very much seems like that's what happened here. And that doesn't make his review bad or wrong. I just think it's one of the less helpful reviews I think I've watched from him. I find his reviews to be very helpful. They're thorough, they break things down, they really get into the meat and the guts of the game. And it's like, you didn't do that. You didn't do that with the open world. I expect that from his content, because that's the degree, that's the pedigree of what he brings in his reviews. And I really feel like he glided over a lot of that stuff, which is unusual for him to do. That's why I was very shocked when I saw the first 2 minutes of his review. I was like, that just doesn't sound like him and how he approaches things. And, you know, for whatever reason, that's where he landed, and that's where his expectations and his approach were. But, like, as I just paused it to say, Tsushima perfected the model. There's really nowhere for this to go, and then turning around and using that as a criticism of Yotei feels very unfair, because I guess you could lobby that against Horizon Forbidden West as well. You could lobby that against basically any sequel. You could lobby that against Spider-Man 2. You see what I'm saying? So
I hope the developers can barrel towards new frontiers, because we don't need more of these games. We have enough of them already, and I hope...
I don't agree. I don't agree. Ralph, stop it. Like, no, they're enjoyable. They're fun. People are loving it. You can't be like, let's just close that period of time and not make these types of games anymore. Good golly, I couldn't disagree with that more. I'm glad that Returnal is basically getting a spiritual sequel. I'm glad that we have another Ghost game. Like, to say we have enough of these games already, oh my word, like, no. That's, if you don't like it and you don't want more of these games, fine. But, like, if that's what Sucker Punch wants to build, and there are willing consumers that love it and want to play it, I really, really think that that's a significant help. YouTube chats and members only. Oh, it imported the settings from the previous stream. I am really, really sorry about that, chat. Give me 1 second. Let me adjust that. I did not realize that. Try to get us to 200 likes on YouTube. I apologize. We did a bit of an experiment this morning coming from Morning Coffee, and it unfortunately had the chat set to members only. I apologize for that. That was not intentional.
that the talent and resources that these studios possess can be put towards creating new things that we've never experienced before, rather than slightly remixing games we've already played.
So, how much time is left in his review? I think he's just going to do the ad placement at the end here, right? Hang
Incredible
on.
sound design and an iconic. Want to check out this release for offering you the gaming and life. Excellent award-winning for your favorite. Is the tech that powers all of this? It supports it's wireless, Bluetooth. Since it supports switching VR headset, the 10% from
Hang on.
games. The 10 hours.
I want to get to the end.
Nailed it. The with series dock still series strings attached.
Here you go. You use code Skillup. I'm happy to let you guys see this. If you go to SteelSeries, he got a sponsor. Support the original video. Support his code as well. I want to see what he says after this.
SteelSeries.com. Offer code Skillup at checkout for 12% off. Thanks SteelSeries for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.
Okay, that's just the end. I wasn't sure if he was going to come back and say something more. Okay, so yeah, I think, and this is where I think Ralph does a very good job. You know, when he breaks down the combat and he talks about what you're able to do with the combat and the skill trees, right? He's so good at that. And I think when it came to the open world, he got down into the mechanics and the technical of the gameplay, and he did not really acknowledge the experiential adjustments that they made. And I think that's incredibly important. Like, if you're going to say, yeah, the open world's basically the same, they didn't innovate it, they didn't evolve it enough, man, you've got to engage with those new things that they came up with. And if you don't, it's just going to fall flat. It's just going to feel like another open world, and you're just bouncing from icon to icon on your horse. And with the fast travel as well, you can really just not be in the world. If he says stuff is missing that you say is definitely there after playing less than half the game, he simply must have skipped all that stuff he wanted and literally was there waiting for him. That's charitable interpretation. I think the issue is it would be easy for somebody to say, if like, let's say I try to steel man his argument, like I imagine he's here on the microphone and he would say, yeah, I didn't think looking at stuff with a telescope was a big change. That seemed pretty minor to me. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. It does seem pretty minor. But if you commit as the player to engaging with Yotei in a way like as he praised Hell Is Us, approach Yotei like that. Just talk to everybody in town. Get the clues. Get the hints. Like, use the wind. Use the map to like be like, okay, I'm gonna go over there. I've not explored there yet. I'm gonna use my telescope to be like, oh, there's something over there. I can clearly see a climbing wall. I'm gonna go over there. If you would have treated it that way, I think that the open world would have felt different. It would have felt different. It would have felt more like, okay, this is an evolution of open world exploration that Tsushima simply didn't have. Tsushima very much did, and this is where I think he was spot on, where he said that, you know, the way they dot the map of these activities and the time it takes to do them, they're very thoughtful, they're very snackable, they're very consumable. You don't feel like you're getting just bludgeoned with this bloated map of activities. He's dead on that. He's exactly right. That's what made Tsushima so good. What elevates Yotei is that you can find and discover those things organically if you engage with the new mechanics, if you engage with the new systems. So I don't think there's a right and a wrong way to play this game. But I think if your desire is to have an evolved open world experience, if that's your desire, it would make sense to me to say, well, then you should use these new things. If you really thought the approach of open world discovery and exploration, if you really thought that Hell Is Us did a really good job, well, then you can approach Yotei with a very intentional mindset of that's what I'm going to do in Yotei. And they built a game that allows you to do that. There are NPCs that will tell you where things are. There's the spyglass. There's the wind. There's the playing the music to change the wind. There's the camp out. There's the way you engage with NPCs at the camp out when you camp. All of those were added to the game to elevate the experience if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking to have the mind experience of Atsu, like she's just exploring this place, and she's looking for clues, you can literally play the game like that. And it's unfortunate that really just didn't get talked about in the video. It just didn't even get addressed. So when you say there's not one iota of evolution and they didn't make a single change, and it's basically like, yeah, if you played Tsushima, you've played this game, I really, really disagree. And I don't think he made a very strong case for that because of those things that were not acknowledged or engaged with. Yes, if you strip away the changes, don't acknowledge them and don't engage with them, yeah, you could basically say this is just like Tsushima. But you've stripped away a lot of the ways that they made this game, I think stand taller than Tsushima. I got the impression from his review he really didn't like the story. I'm not sure the method of discovery would change that too much. If he's lots and lots of story because the method of discovery, that's on him. Oh my gosh, that's a big one. And a 50 bomb comes in from Silent Spartan. Hang on, I can't interact with the member display all of a sudden. What? There we go. Boom. Wait. No. That's not right. Hang on. It did it twice. Hang on, add to the weekly. I got a minus 50. Yeah, we should be at 410. I can't take away the total for YouTube, though. I don't think I can. Yeah, I can't take away 50. Oh, well. Oh, my gosh. He's going to do 2 anyway. There we go. We're at 460. Thank you so much, Silent Spartan. 250 bombs back to back. Spam those farty bomb emotes on YouTube. This guy just took over the chat for the next 10 minutes. Jiminy Christmas. I definitely owe you guys some member over there on YouTube. It looks like you guys are going to get your double header. And 5 bomb from Wire Rope comes over on Twitch. And another one comes in from Alex. And a 10 bomb, the tag team on Twitch, to Secure 475. I owe a member to Twitch. Well done, Alex and Wire Rope with the tag team steal. That's unbelievable. That is really, really good. I'm impressed. How Twitch managed to pull that off. This man drops 250 bombs, and you guys come out of nowhere. Oh, wait, cancel. I forgot to unlist this. That's the only problem with this new method is you've got to unlist the previous video, and I was super distracted. So we were probably confusing people's home pages with the same, with what looked like the same thumbnail. Okay, and a 5 bomb comes in from Stone Spire and gets us to 480. He sets up another dunker. We're 20 away. Radon says he was simply unwilling to engage with the game on its own terms. I struggle with that part. I do struggle with that part because it's like I can't say he did anything wrong. It's like that's the way he approached the game. I feel like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Does that make sense? If I'm going to approach an open world game, not engage with any of the new features, not adjust the way that I play in congruence with those new features, no, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to be like, yeah, it feels like just another open world game. And it's like, well, yeah, it sounds like you played it like one. Thank you for the gifted Mike on the mic. Bumps the line to 481. Thank you, sir. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, you played the game wrong. No, I don't think that's the appropriate thing to say. It's more like, sounds like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you didn't even allow those new things to maybe get some footing and get some traction. And again, it might not have made a difference. Like what Hilly just got done saying. It might not have made a difference. He might have been like, that's fine. It's still not a great story. You know, it's still not a compelling story. I don't like the story. Like, if a game doesn't romance you or woo you in the first hour, it's probably going to struggle to, like, get traction. Like, if he just thought, man, this story's kind of lame, this story's kind of boring. I mean, That's subjective. You know, if that's what happens, that's what happens. That happened to me with AC Shadows. I just got bored. I was like, the combat wasn't carrying the game anymore. I got like 35 or 40 hours in, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't feel like the combat can carry the game. So I know exactly what he experienced. It sounds like maybe he experienced it earlier. He was just like, I just think this story's kind of lame or not very good, and the open world just feels familiar. And so he doesn't get into gear with the game, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, well, then you play the game like a traditional open world game, and then you conclude that it feels like a traditional open world game. It'd be funny if he talked about not doing any of the side stuff, but had a mile-long health bar, and we'd be like, I see what you've been doing. Here's the thing. Welcome back, Dr. Killshot, with 33 months. Great to see the hard work pay off. Also, I love getting lost in Yotei. It's what I've been waiting for all year. I feel like, what did I just read? I was going to respond to something that somebody just said. Oh, yeah, the side quests. I would be really curious. And a 20 bomb comes in from Dylan to secure it. And now you guys can work on a stretch goal. Listen, we haven't hit a stretch goal in a couple of weeks, but we'll do it. That turns Saturday into community game night. And there's I think I've got early access to a brand new Jackbox that we could check out. So you guys want to keep it going? We definitely need it right now. The changes to the platform, y'all's support and hitting the goals and renewing, upgrading, and gifting, man oh man, has that been incredibly helpful. That is massive. Thank you so much. And that's why I'm willing to do extra streams, because I want to show that appreciation for when you guys go crazy with the support. You know, I want you guys to feel like, hey, when we go crazy, we get a lot of extra goodies. Yeah, I have a Steam Jackbox Party Pack 11. I got a Steam code for. So I tell you what, you guys hit the goal, and that's what we can do. Reviewing art's always subjective outside the technical aspects of the game. I think Deuterino, that's what frustrated me about his review and made me want to react to it, because subjectively you can be like, I thought the story was lame. That's fine. That's subjective. Saying they've not made any changes to the open world, they didn't evolve it one iota, I'm like, but they really did. What? Like that, if you say, well, the changes to the open world weren't enough, weren't strong enough, it didn't really change my experience, that's fine. He says they didn't make any changes, there's nothing evolved, not one iota, and I'm like, boy, oh boy, I don't agree. They did a lot. That was where I tripped up on his review in the first couple of minutes. I was like, wait, what? I was like, they highlighted this in interviews before the game even came out, how they were changing their approach to the open world. It was like one of the main things they focused on. So to say they didn't make any changes, I was like, okay. I don't agree. They made a lot. And I think they really, really helped. I love to hear from someone who plays Yotei first and then goes back to Tsushima. Right, Jack. To be like, are they that similar, or would they feel regression in the open world and the features that were suddenly lacking? Like, I was telling people not to do that. I was like, don't play Yotei first and then go back to Tsushima. Don't do that. Because then you'll be missing those features, and it'll feel like a regression. It'll make it harder to enjoy Tsushima. Vaughn says, when playing Tsushima, I played for 6 hours so far. The thing that I go back to is that it feels like an AC game, and for me, the story is good but not groundbreaking. For all the hype, I honestly was expecting more, and now I'm not 100% sure that I want to get Yotei. OGDSB with 37 months. Skillup takes a minute to speak on his review in the video he posted today. Admits he may have missed the mark on it. Starts at 22 minutes. Oh, are you serious? I told you guys it was very uncharacteristic of him. That's what made me bristle. I was like, Ralph is so thoughtful and so careful. It felt very out of character for him. You're saying at 22 minutes? All right, hang on. Okay, here we go. Let's see what he has to say.
this episode. It also gave me a chance to finish up my own review, which you've probably already seen on this channel, or on Twitter, or on Reddit, or wherever. TLDR on that review is that I personally was not a fan of the story, and I feel the open world offered little in the way of innovation. The combat visuals and soundtrack are a step up, but for me it wasn't enough to really advance this formula or this franchise, and I came away from Yotei feeling like I'd played it before. A lot of feedback on that video, and I want to take a moment to respond to it. I think the most insightful feedback I got was that as someone who plays all of the games, especially all of the open world games, I'm more likely to get burned out on these types of games, or fixate on the innovation rather than what's actually in front of me.
That's fair. That's fair, because there's an emotional, there's a mentality, there's an emotion, there's a part of it playing a game that he's not a robot. He can't be like, well, I just got done playing 80 hours of AC Shadows and 60 hours of this other open world game. Like, he can't change that about himself. Like, you're just going to get tired. So that's what's difficult about these types of things. $5 from Mike on a Mike. Good morning, y'all. I don't agree with Skillup at all. I want to see what he says in response to his feedback, because that's what I said. It really sounded like he just kind of soured on open world games because he really liked Horizon Forbidden West, which is very much guilty of a lot of the things he took issue with in his Yotei review.
Most commenters said that they only play a few games a year and they haven't played one of these open world style games since Ghost of Tsushima, and for them, Yotei is exactly what they wanted. I think that's a very valid perspective that's given me a lot to reflect on as I think about how to do this job better. When reviewing anything, I do think you always need to be true to yourself and your own perspective. I think it's also helpful to consider other perspectives too, and make some room for them as you offer up a recommendation to an audience that is very diverse. I try to do that, and I do think I tried to do it with Yotei, but I don't think I got the balance quite right in that review, and so I think people calling me out on that is totally fair. It wouldn't change anything I said about Yotei, but I probably would have framed my own frustrations with its familiarity differently. I'm not perfect, and even after doing this job for a bunch of years, I'm still always trying to do it better, so I appreciate all the feedback you gave me in the comment section, and I'll keep it in mind going forward. Enough about me though. What did other critics think? Well, Ghost of Yotei is sitting at a mighty 87 on OpenCritic, with critics basically all agreed that it's a beautiful game and a refined if familiar version of the open world formula. Much like myself, folks were a little more divided on the narrative though, which is a straightforward revenge tale. IGN scored Yotei an 8 out of 10. Here's what they had to say, quote, "A predictable but well-executed story takes you through Ghost of Yotei's gorgeous landscape."
Yeah, I don't care what IGN says. No, like, I actually think that's really admirable of him to be like, hey, I heard the feedback, you know. I don't know what he could do differently, though, because, like, if you've played a bunch of open world games in a row and you're kind of fatigued on them, like, how do you not feel that fatigue when you play Yotei? You know what I'm saying? Like, he could try to remove that subjective experience and just be objective to say, hey, they did make these changes. Maybe that'll change your experience. It didn't change mine enough. I think that's what frustrated me with the opening of the review. He spoke so sweeping about the game, not having one iota of evolution, you know, not changing anything in the open world. And I'm like, man, that is so sweeping. And there's a ton of things that they did change. And sadly, they don't get mentioned in his review. And again, I felt like that was a very much self-fulfilling prophecy to not enjoy the open world. What are you doing? Pork Pie comes in with 57? I don't know why you just gifted 57, but you did. 57 members were just gifted over there on Twitch. What were you going for? What were you going for, Pork? Thank you so much. Is there significance to the 57? Like 57 sauce or something? I'm not sure. Was there a total you were going for? I don't know. What are you doing, Pork? Anyways. That's very, very generous of you. Thanks so much. Doing custom gifted amounts. Just getting myself to even number of what I was gifted. Oh, what's your total to now? 977 total gifteds, it says. So welcome in anybody who just got a gifted from Pork Pie. I mean, we've got some heavy hitters in our midst. We got Dylan dropping 20s. We got, 50s coming in from Silent Spartan. And now we got, Pork Pie. You said 1150? Yeah, I don't know why it's saying 977 on my screen. I'm not sure what it's doing. There's another Ralph on Skillup staff who could have done it. Is another Aussie flaw I'm unaware of. They have so many. What? It's telling me that I've gifted 1150. Chat, the chat summary says it differently. It doesn't matter to me. That I wish it showed the higher number. You deserve credit for the higher number. If you're a critic, you're playing these games because you have to, not because you want to all of the time. Well, and I talked about that yesterday. Somebody brought up, like, well, why wouldn't he just skip it if he's not in the mood? If he's not in the mood for an open world game, right? Why wouldn't he skip it? And I said, well, at his scale, it would feel really foolish to skip a game the size of Yotei. I don't expect him to do that. Be like, well, I'm kind of not in the mood, so I'm going to skip one of the biggest games this year. Especially since he loves Tsushima so much, it's like, you can't just skip out on the sequel. Thanks for the gift that I got cut off from stream driving. Wanted to point out that Skillup didn't point out you can turn off things that guide you to the birds and so on. There is very much a way to approach the open world that I think he would have enjoyed more. And sadly, he just didn't do that. I think that's unfortunate for his own experience. I think he would have had a better time if he would have played the game like some of us are doing. I'm not saying that we're doing a better job or we're doing it right and he did it wrong. I'm saying I think he would have enjoyed it more if he just would have let the open world be this canvas that he explores using those new features. I think it's really making the game sing. Like, I am loving it. Like, I gave the example in my reaction to his content. Last night, I just stumbled upon the guy with the Kasurigama. I wasn't going there for any particular reason. Nobody told me to go there. All of a sudden, I found these things. I'm not going to tell you what they were. There's these things in the snow and in the forest. I'm like, what is this? And suddenly I hear something and I go over and I start talking with this guy. And then all of a sudden I'm in the Kasurigama quest. That has been my experience for 36 hours. Every side quest, when I found the Spider Lily quest, when I found the Crimson Kimono quest, I stumbled upon these things because I was just roaming the countryside using the wind and using my spyglass and using the instruments to play the songs. That's how I've been experiencing the game. So that's why when I saw that clip of him and he said what he said, I was like, what? I was like, how could you say that? I'm having such a different experience than that. I'm having what I feel is one of the best open world experiences I've had since like Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring. The first half of Elden Ring, I think, is open world perfection. It falls apart in the second half, but I've not had that experience in a long time. And I was like, man, Yotei has really elevated what I think an open world can be. It feels genuinely emergent and dynamic. I feel like I'm genuinely discovering things. When you find these things on their own, these story beats and these things that have Atsu in different conversations, it feels very, very different. Are you on the left side or the left side of the map? Huh? Keywords open world. It makes sense that your experiences might diverge quite a bit. Yes, I think anytime you're in an open world like this, that's going to be a risk, is that we're going to have very, very different experiences. I just picked up the Spider Lily quest last night. I'm excited. It's a very, very good quest. It's very good. Just the introduction to Crimson Kimono and Spider Lily, just those introductions with like the narration and the black and white artwork, just that alone, I think is excellent. I really do. I think they do such a good job with those things. They feel like these very, very cool, micro moments within the game. Are moving into the Ani region yet? I don't even know what region I'm in. I'm gonna be honest with you. I pay so little attention to the map. The only reason I pull open the map is I want to make sure I'm clearing the fog, because that's how I'm finding stuff. I'm not like clicking on icons. I'm like, okay, where have I not? I feel like I feel like I'm a cartographer. I'm an explorer. I'm like, okay, where have I not gone? There, okay, that's where I'm gonna go next. And I just hop on my horse and go, and I just discover stuff. I literally discovered Pillar of the Fallen. Is that what they're called? I just discovered one of those last night, like by accident. What's your favorite armor in the game? Right now, I'm wearing the nine tail armor. I really like it. I did agree with him on that. I'm really bummed they didn't do transmog. Cool shirt. Thank you, Pork Pie. I'm really bummed they didn't do transmog because there's some really great armor sets, but they're not. I don't know. Their perks don't seem to be worth a darn. You know what I mean? It's the goal for tonight. Oh no, you guys got the goal for tonight. So we're gonna play Little Nightmares 3 and we're gonna play Date Everything. We're gonna play both tonight. But the stretch goal is for hang on. The stretch goal is for community game night. I'm gonna put Jackbox Games down there in the corner. Let me do that for you guys here. You went with Crimson Kimono. Crimson Kimono is a really nice one. I was going to do some gameplay today and kind of show you guys where I am in the game. I know some of you won't be able to stay when I do that because you might be worried about spoilers. Here we go. We'll go Jackbox Games. Okay, so the goal now that we're working on is a stretch goal to have a community game night. Here, I'll put this over here above the goal. That's what we're working on now. It's an extra stream on a Saturday for you guys. And I appreciate you so much. We haven't hit a stretch in a while. You got plenty of time to do it today. Hang on. There we go. Can we get 20 more likes on the video, guys? I appreciate the turnout today. I know it's a little different format. I've not picked up Absalom, no. Is that on console? I just don't have time to come in here and play games on the PC. Did Absalom hit all stores? I thought it was hitting Steam first. Oh, no, it is. It's available on PlayStation. It has a 4.91. And it's 1 to 2 players. It's 1 to 2 players. I did not know that was co-op. I could definitely check that out with Madam. I told you all this was going to happen. I told you that Borderlands 4 was going to come out. Madam and I were going to get lost in it, and now all these great co-op games are coming out. So yeah, I bought it last night. Let's see here. I forgot to put the I forgot to put this on the post. We did a post. I did a post of. Do you guys dislike that or not? We had a lot of people unsub, reacting to Skillup's review. We had a lot of people unsub when I did that, and I wonder if that's frustrating. Like when something like a picture hits your feed. Like I did this post yesterday on YouTube. YouTube kind of wants us to start treating the platform like that. Like it's a social platform. It's a place for us to share stuff like this. But I did that and a bunch of people unsubbed. And I'm like, maybe people do not like that hitting their YouTube homepage. Absalom's doing genre advancing stuff for beat 'em ups. Too many games. Oh no. Yeah, I need to wishlist Absalom. So I don't forget about it. I need to wishlist it on PlayStation because I've got so many co-op games for Adam and I to play once we're done with Borderlands. Like Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 on the Switch 2. Those are some of our favorite co-op games that we've ever played. So we almost have 200 likes on the video, guys. Try to get us there. We reacted to Skillup's review, his Ghost of Yotei review. If you want to check it out, you've got to rewind. We're kind of not doing that anymore, but I don't want to just shut the stream down. The vast majority of people can watch the beginning and they can watch it later. I'm playing Wu Chang, Yotei, and Silent Hill F. Great time for games. I can't rotate like that. I have a really hard time right now just bouncing between Ghost of Yotei and Borderlands. That's been very, very difficult to do. But it's been enjoyable to do, but it's been challenging. I'm very bad about that, like switching gears like that. There's over 450,000 in Battlefield 6 at the moment. The line is killing me. Yeah, I was going to play it today, and I was like, you know what? My backlog is so huge, I don't feel like playing Battlefield for an hour and moving it to the backlog. It has a greater chance of me playing through it if I save it for later and just play from the very beginning. I was driving. What was the too long didn't read on his feedback that you were listening to? I think Skillup got it exactly right when he talked about the armor system not having transmog, the charm system being like a little redundant and there's almost too many of them, the combat system being highly elevated and excellent. I don't think his view of the open world is one that I can agree with, because he really didn't seem, I don't know if he did or not, according to his review, he didn't seem to engage with any of the new open world features, and he concluded there was no innovation, there were no changes to the open world, and largely that turned him off. He also didn't like the story. Now, Hilly, you said earlier, even if he would have engaged with all those things, it might not have changed his mind on the story. That's possible, but some of the best story beats for Atsu's character have happened off the beaten path. A lot of the side missions and side quests and side stories that I have discovered have added deeper context to her journey, and I feel like he missed out on that stuff. Sorry, not the review. He was talking about feedback on the review. He admitted that the feedback and criticism he received that was fair is you play almost every game, and if you're burned out on open world, a lot of us aren't burned out on open world. A lot of us, the last open world game we played like this was Tsushima, and he said that that was fair. I think it's very difficult for somebody in his position to remove his subjective experience and consider other experiences. That's why I bristled at his open, because it seemed very sweeping. It's like there's not one iota of change here. They didn't change anything, and I'm like, what on earth? I'm like, yes, they did. Well, I think what he could have said, if he was more balanced in his video, he could have said, listen, they made changes that I don't feel like really impacted the experience enough. That might be different for you. Because I'm sitting here at 36 hours saying, brother, this open world's phenomenal. It's so much better than Tsushima because of these new things. I keep making the analogy of a small change can have big impact. You know, you can... You know, let's say, and the example I gave was like a pebble in your shoe. A pebble's very small, but it's going to have an impact on the rest of your day, right? An eyelash in your eye, right? Well, those are annoying, so those aren't the best analogies. So the other analogy I made is, if you're listening to music, if you're listening to like some score, and all of a sudden a flute comes in with this very touching melody, it would completely change the entire song. It's a small addition that has big impact, right? Listen to like the flute or the melody that they use for whenever you're listening to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, and the melody for the Shire breaks through, right? It's just a single flute by itself. It has enormous impact. I think the small changes and things they added to the open world experience, I think they have a pretty big impact on your experience. He didn't seem to engage with those things, and I think that makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't like the open world. Maybe you would have thought differently if you engaged with these things. Maybe not. Maybe he still would have thought, I'm sick of open world games. That doesn't really change my experience. But I think it would have given the game a better shot. The charm system is set up for specific builds, and since the game is loadouts, it encourages you to switch. Right. I agreed with him, though, that there are too many charms that don't really matter. Like, I think they should have trimmed down the charms to a smaller group that are more meant for builds like that. I have various loadouts. I've got a loadout for sneaking, a loadout for my bow, a loadout for parries, a loadout for disarming. I'm not really switching because it doesn't feel like that kind of game where like you're going on a mission and there's reconnaissance that's like, you're going to need your bow or you're going to need to sneak. You're just sort of organically moving from bow to sneak to combat to duel, and it feels really weird in the midst of that to be like pausing and changing my loadout, if that makes sense. Which, I tell you what we should probably do. I do want to play more today with you guys. I've got a planned stream. If you guys want to extend and just keep hanging out and keep doing the talk show, I'm happy to do that. I usually say, hey, we got to hit a milestone for me to do that if I'm going to disrupt the schedule. So if you guys can get that to 600, I'll hold off and give you guys a chance to unlock Community Game Night, because I want to kind of honor the generosity today. We've had some people go crazy with Pork Pie, Dylan, and Silent Spartan gifting an absurd amount. So I want to honor that and give you guys an opportunity to keep going, because that the crazy Buck Wild Fridays are, I think, something worthy of appreciation. You guys are great. The charm system matters way more on lethal than on lower difficulties. Oh, I firmly believe that. One of my favorite charms that I have right now is you automatically pick up any dropped weapon. Oh my gosh, that feels so cool, because I'll do it by accident. I'll disarm somebody and I won't even realize that I disarmed them, and then all of a sudden I'm throwing a sword at them. It's so cool. 558's a great number with you missing one day of streaming. I agree. I'll pause them. Sorry about that, Diablo. The charms could be better. That's a fair critique. I just think there's too many. There are some that are like moderate increase to health, like moderate increase in seeing at night. Like, I'm making that up, but there's ones like that are like, what? That seems so inconsequential. And it's like, they're just taking up space. You know, it's not a huge deal. But I feel like they just end up taking up space. I keep getting emails that I have available sponsorships on Twitch, and then I go and they're not there. Is that a common glitch? Have you guys heard about that? It was saying I had a sponsorship available for Blue Protocol, which I don't necessarily know if I would have accepted it or not, but it's just not even there. I'm using the moderate increase to health charm. Is this the right controller in here? Nope. Is this the right controller in here? Nope. What about this? Yes, I should be able to turn on my PlayStation while I'm in here. I won't have to go get the controller. $5 super chat. Oh, I already read that. Sorry. I'm almost done with Yotei. Once I figured out this game's version of lethal, it's been a lot easier. Is there any way to turn off the blue flashes? I swear I just need the red flash and the yellow flash. I've had so many people agree with me that the blue flash like throws you off. Like, I swear it throws my timing off. I just need to see the enemy's movement. I just need to see the basic telegraphs. Big love, Brody. I like to watch streamers who I can tell value gaming, get excited, and enjoy them as pieces of art. It's a great landscape. Shout out to... Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, 50 Plus Gamer is saying that Skillup, I usually enjoy his work, but he needs to not review open worlds if he thinks those two games didn't iterate. He brought up Far Cry. It was interesting that he brought up Far Cry. Is this a contract thing you've been speaking on? Longtime Halo art director leaves the studio. Microsoft is acidic to creative process. Can't wait to hear his side of the story. Yeah, this Halo situation. I've tried to tell people for a long time that Microsoft's the problem. Yeah, this is my armor right now in the game. I'm rocking the Nine Tails armor. I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks very, very good. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, 8 minutes. You guys have 8 minutes, and then I'm going to start kind of planning the next segment. If you guys can get this to 600, we'll extend and keep going. We'll keep talking. We'll keep conversing. You know, you can bring up other gaming news subjects and other things. The contract policy, Microsoft's not conducive to game development. Yeah, I'll be very interested to see what he says. Yeah. I think more and more folks are going to start speaking out about the problem over there, and they're not going to talk about Phil or Xbox. They're going to talk about Microsoft. You just got an update for Yotei? Excuse me. There's a patch? Had they said anything about a patch? I haven't had any issues at all with performance. There was a patch. There was a patch that seems to help my performance and my experience in Borderlands. It wasn't like night and day, but I feel like we had better time last night with like issues of the memory leak and stuttering and stuff. I didn't seem like I had as much last night. My game didn't crash last night when I played Borderlands with Madam, and it had been crashing like once a night. So that's a good sign as well. I think the patch was just minor bugs. Okay. Wait, I did have a bug in... I swear I had... What was the bug that I had in Yotei? What was it that was driving me nuts? This episode of SNTR presents Hey Lono. Day 9 of StarCraft is the only other guy I can think of your equal. Destiny franchise lost a legendary fan in you. Miss your content. Sorry to bring that up. I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, I know a lot of you guys miss that era of time. You know, it was a fun time, and you know, folks decided to do whatever they felt they needed to do back then, and you know, I've just largely tried to move on. Yes, the invisible coin bug. That's what it was. Yes. I went to play the stupid coin game and I couldn't see the coins. They were like going into the table. I was like, "Where are they?" I was like, "What is this, some kind of a magic trick? Am I supposed to memorize the coin locations?" Yeah, if you guys are happy I'm still around, I appreciate that. The best way to ensure I keep getting to do this is to come back as often as you can. If you can do a membership or a sub, that's the second thing you can do. The best thing to do is just be here as often as you can. It's been ages since I've seen Lono. Can someone give me the elevator pitch on what happened? Wait, you just now found me today? You haven't been here? When was the last time you were here, Gwoden? Oh, you're not lying. You used my ad-free command. The last time you spoke in my chat was September of 2019. In the summer of 2020, people circulated false stories about me, or stories that were so embellished that what they might as well have been just complete fabrications. They took really benign interactions that were never an issue until I became popular, and then they suddenly wanted to retread and make it seem like a joke I told 4 years before was somehow some massive offense. And they basically went on a cancel brigade. For 2 weeks, I lived in horror and fear of like I was going to lose everything, and then I went on an investigation, sort of fact-finding, and I looked into a lot of the claims because I couldn't see them. Everybody blocked me before lying about me. And I went and made an hour-long video defending myself, and then I got banned from Twitch. No one ever explained to me why I was banned from Twitch. I was never spoken to about it. They would never show me any evidence of where I broke TOS. They were just, you know, benign, really vague claims made on Twitter. And in the wake of people looking into the situation, a lot of the claims got walked back, deleted, or disappeared because they weren't real, they weren't true. There were gentlemen that run an organization in a conference that scrubbed their entire timelines because they told a copious amount of lies about me, and they really used their standing in the community to light my life on fire. And then everything they claimed disappeared because it wasn't true. And there was never any correcting of the public record. No one ever formally covered it. No one ever formally investigated it. No outlet, no YouTuber, nobody, with the exception of maybe Upper Echelon. Earlier this year, I was conversing with Dan Clancy in an email about coming back to the Twitch platform. He looked into the situation, and he welcomed me back. So my hope is that, you know, he saw what went down and finally realized, like, wait a minute, this wasn't legitimate, and he welcomed me back. So we've been back on the platform since April. That's like the fastest summary I can make. I'm always happy to answer questions. I don't gloss over it if somebody genuinely has a question because they worry that, like, well, what if some of those things were true about you? I think that's legitimate. If you're going to come back around and support me, I think it's fair for you to answer those questions. What none of the people will do that lied about me will ever do is answer questions or talk about it, because they can't keep the story straight, because they lied so many times they're not even sure what's true and what's not anymore. I have no problem talking about it because I've only ever told the truth about it. Excuse me. So, the long and short of it is Lono plays more games than Destiny. He drinks too much sake. I actually don't drink too much sake. I haven't touched this since the night we did this stream. I'm more of a bourbon fan. I'm not really a sake guy. Like, it's fine. It's just not my cup of tea. You're not supposed to be making tea with it. Is it always muddy in Yotei? Every time I run, she's kicking up mud, or is that a bug? It depends on where you are. I don't feel like I'm always kicking up mud. Try it cold. I might try it on the rocks. We'll see. All right, we're at the top of the hour, so it doesn't look like we're going to go for stretch. That's totally fine. I'm going to take that down. If you guys still do it and go crazy, I'll still honor it. But we do need to set up the next stream for gameplay. I don't want to belabor this stream. I'm going to do members only. I'm going to set it for 10 minutes. I'm going to schedule it for VIP so very few people get pinged, because I'm going to change the stream to be a gameplay stream. Upcoming. Okay. We need Yotei gameplay. Ghost of Yotei gameplay. I've got a thumbnail. Gaming news today. Okay. We are trying a new thumbnail, so if you're like, man, the thumbnail's weird. Wait, did we seriously not get put... Are we not in the category of Ghost of Yotei on this video? I wondered. I was like, man, we did not get browse or search at all on this, and we really should have. I don't think it put us in Ghost. Oh, no, it did. It did. Okay, I was going to say, I was like, man, oh, man. I mean, we got browse. I'm sorry. We didn't get a lot of search, and I thought maybe that was why. Okay. Now let me set this to public. Save. We go in here to custom. Subscribers, any duration. Okay. Okay, you don't have to be a member to come to the new stream. It's just a new redirect feature, and that's the best way for us to use it. YouTube has literally time-gated me with upgrading to Member Plus. I'm not really sure what YouTube's doing anymore. I'm really not. They've made it really, really hard on us this year, man. Upgrading to members is still a nightmare. They were putting members-only content on people's homepages and making them mad and unsubbing. It's holy crap. It's a 10-minute conversation with me, and they could have avoided all these trappings. It's like they don't understand live streams at all. It's very frustrating. YouTube doesn't know what YouTube's doing. Yeah, it's extremely frustrating. Okay, so we're going to switch gears to gameplay in about 7 minutes. I went to upgrade. It said it would kick in on the 12th. I don't even... Bizarre. 10 new notifications. They're all Black Ops 6 is ready. Yeah, and it's downloading the Yotei update right now. Okay. While that's updating, I'm going to take a very quick break so we can just jump into gameplay, okay? Make sure you guys are smashing the like button, hitting subscribe, all the things. I'll be right back. What region do you get the kunai? Yeah, that's another thing I just randomly found just by exploring was the kunai. I've absolutely loved how that feels. Like you just sort of stumble across something and you're like, oh, what's this? And this person starts talking to you and you like help them or whatever. And then you literally get kunai from them. Like, cool. Like, to me, the kunai was like game changing against Kasurigama. Folks at the Kasurigama. I don't have the spear yet. Hey, thank you so much, Narwaffle Gifton, a member to I Fits It Sits, getting us to 559 on the stretch. Kunai's OP. Yeah, I didn't even realize I've got a couple of charms that are all the way leveled. And I've got a couple I need to visit 6 more hot springs. I need to complete more paintings. Yeah, but I've got a couple that I've already upgraded. Let's do this. We'll need to switch to the Ghost of Yotei directory on purple. Ghost of Yotei. Let's play some Yotei. Yes, it rhymes. What's good, girl with the golden gun? How are you? Redirect with this new feature is really, really good. So in a minute and a half, we're just going to like be in a new stream, okay? It's really, really good. So I will put the link in chat, though, just in case you guys need it. You guys on Purple don't have to do anything. Okay. Which side of the map? I mean, I've gotten all the way up here. I'm in Teshio Ridge. I don't know if you guys are that far yet. Which is better? Okay. All right, 30 seconds. It's just going to automatically switch. Oh, it looks like I got upgrades for the Kasuri Gamma. I haven't done that yet. I need to go. I'm assuming you do that at the home base. All right, guys, 15 seconds. Remember, when we go over to the new stream, help me out. Hit the like button. It's super, super helpful. Thank you for a VIP of 40 months, Talica. Let me add you to the total.